Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody doing today? So we just want to do a quick little recap on what we did today. We're so excited and we are just really going to give you guys a quick rundown of what we talked about and where we were. So I have Dr. Lamb here and we
Hi.
are tag teaming. Say hello.
Hey.
What is going on, you two? So this video, we just want to give a quick recap about what we did today, our session, supporting Black educators and retention and having some action steps. And so what did we do? Where were we and what happened and why was it amazing?
It was definitely an amazing session, collaborating, presenting for PEDC, Pennsylvania Department of Education Diversity Consortium. Our session that we presented was about setting the conditions for Black educators and nurturing their brilliance. What we
Mhm.
talked about in that session with teachers, administrators, and school directors is the history of post Brown versus Board of Education and what happened when the schools became integrated. So, for instance, we lost many of our Black teachers and the Black administrators. And we also lost when when the schools were segregated, Black teachers taught our Black students about civics, about government, about advocating for themselves. So our students also lost that teaching and learning after Brown versus Board. So in order for us to make changes and actually retain the teachers, the Black teachers who are still in the educational system, we can't ignore the history because you have to focus on that history in order to learn from it if you want to so-called fix what's going on now. When we keep ignoring the history, what do you see that is happening? The same thing. Our children cannot read, they're not being educated, they're being disciplined, they're being over policed, they're being police period, they're being suspended, they're being labeled with a disability, they're being referred to special education just because they won't stop talking, just because they won't do the work, just because the teacher thinks they can't read.
Right.
But we really don't know that because teachers aren't being trained in the science of reading and able to teach kids how to read. So we have a large number of Black students who are placed in special education and are labeled with a disability. And now
Hmm.
we have to ask ourselves, was Brown versus Board, was it worth it? Because originally we wanted, well, the Black educators and teachers at that time, they wanted this because their Black schools didn't have the resources, right? They didn't have the services, right? So after Brown versus Board, it was integrated. But you have to think now, do our Black schools have the resources? Do they have the services? And the answer is no. So was it worth it? And what do we need to do to change it? If we want to change it, you can't ignore the history. So what's happening now, instead of focusing on the history and going by the actual research and the data that is there, we have it. We have the research, we have the data. What we do is we ignore the history, we don't follow the data, and we do what I call feel good tactics. We want to focus on school closures. We want to focus on school reforms. We want to purchase academic curriculum. Certain schools want to start um, DEI programs or equity teams. How is that going to help to retain Black teachers when you're not even setting the conditions to retain the ones you already have? Or another feel good tactic is, well, let's just get some new Black teachers in. If you can't retain the Black teachers that you already have now, how are the new Black teachers going to sustain in a toxic work culture environment that you refuse to change? So it doesn't make sense.
Mm. Mm. Listen. That's it. That's powerful. I think that we've got to think about it. And I think I'd argue that, yes, I believe that the Brown versus Board, it was necessary because we needed the resources. And so, but I believe that we had the resource, and that was the Black educator right in front of our children. But I think what was necessary for America at the time was the fact that we definitely did need to have equality and equity with amongst our whole world, because we have to live in this world together, unite in a united way, right? We do. That's why we're here. And actually, we're better together. We have more power together to make sure that everyone is well. It's only when we're separated and we choose to say, like, have these hierarchies and this power mindset that, some people are better, some people are not. And we have all these gaps and these social constructs that really push us downward as a people, a human race, right? Because we created these things that don't actually need to be there, right? But we have taken time, and I agree, we've taken time to say, okay, no, there are people who fought for this and fought for the right for us to have resources and all the things that just fair treatment. But the problem is that people want to take things in their own hand and make it hand and do some of that, and then the other portion make it work for the way they wanted to still feel comfortable, still feel like I'm above you. And that has been it's really affected us as people, period. Not just Black people. Everyone is affected by those types of things that have happened in the past, which is why our ancestors, our Black and brown ancestors and allies, have fought for us to have freedom and have rights and be able to vote and be able to go to school together. But they didn't fight for us to do it in a way where we then push out and shut down what was working for our Black and brown children. So now we're in a space where people have to assimilate and kind of prove themselves. And people on our call today, on our talk today, we're talking a lot about, not feeling heard as Black educators, or given all of these things to do that actually don't connect with what they're supposed to be
Right.
doing and the brilliance. They have to go and put out fires. That's all they're pretty much good for. And it's like, no,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
actually not what was fought for in the segregation area. That wasn't. If we've got to go look, and Dr. Lamy talked about this, we've got to look at our policies, we've got to look at our practices from before and see what was actually working, what wasn't working, and take what was working and take it to the next level, but take what wasn't working and advocate around it and say, no, let's shift. But now we're in a space where it's like, dang, we need more Black teachers. Well, we had a lot of Black teachers, but they're all leaving the profession. Many are leaving the profession because they're tired of trying to Black and brown teachers, but I'm isolating Black as a Black woman because I can speak to my experience in that way. We've got to allow people to be themselves, and we have to go back. And back in the day when you had teachers, male teachers, female teachers that were Black, that were teaching about how children can live in this world and thrive in this world and advocate, there was so much of that great stuff happening. Then we come together and it's like, well, the dominant culture that we live in, we have to live by a certain standard. So all of that great stuff that went out the window. No, we've got to reframe our thinking, our way of being, our way of pushing through, because we cannot allow the next generation to then come in and do the same exact things, or even worse, because I'm wondering, will school be a thing with the next generation? People are not taking this.
No, they're
Our
not.
children are not, none of us, they're like, what is happening? So we've got to pick up the pace with advocating and making things right, and pick up where our ancestors left off, but make it better. Like, we can't just say, okay, we have all the same resources and we have all these things available. Dr. Lam, I was sitting at a conference last weekend, and it was about like finances and business and things like that. And they're saying we have all these free resources and we try to go into the communities of the Black and brown communities, but they never come. And we do, and they're all real and they're all things. And I thought to myself, I said, wow, it's not, I don't think that people don't want to come. I think
Mhm.
that now we have all these extra resources and all these things, and it's still two things: a space where people go and they're like, oh, I'm going to take advantage of this too, that already probably have privilege and have some of these things. And it's fine. I think we all can do it. But other people don't always, Black and brown people, I'll say, speak for myself, I don't always feel comfortable in certain spaces. And I've had
Mhm.
to work through that because of what I've gone through in the school systems, as a Black woman, trying to be, you know,
Mhm.
what I'm supposed to be versus my calling. My calling was, no, teach these babies and do it well, do it with all your heart, be free to be yourself. But we're not always put in those situations. Many of us are limited with other races that are in the same places with us. Like we're the only ones. There's so many issues. But I think the main thing that I love about our session today was that people got the tools to say no. Number one, call it out,
Talk
right?
about.
Another tool was you have everything you need inside of you. Stop having to try to prove yourself. Just do what you know to do well. The community aspect, pull out your gifts and respect each gift that is in the space. Right. Another one was we talked about earlier, challenging those status quo, but also
Right,
challenging the dead policies that really need
right,
to die and
right,
go.
right.
Like it's
Look
not
at the
okay.
culture. Look at the work culture that you're in, and let's examine that. What
Mm-hmm.
what does the culture feel like, look like? What is going on in the culture? What are the interactions? Then with the policies, everybody has the policies and practices. Examine those and challenge them because who are they benefiting? Who are they
Mm-hmm.
not benefiting? What race are those policy and practices benefiting? And
Mm-hmm.
they need to be challenged. And it's not just the district administrator or the school administrator responsibility, it's all of our responsibility.
All of our
So you have to
responsibility.
make a choice. You're either going to advocate for yourself or you're not going to advocate for yourself.
And that's as the Black educator. Are you speaking for the Black educator?
I am
Or
speaking for Black educators.
okay. And
If
so,
you
and I'm
want
speaking,
to
yeah.
retain Black educators, if our goal is to retain Black educators, the Black educators who we still have in our classroom teaching our children, you have to advocate for you, first of all, for you as a human being, not a teacher, as a human being. We're not teacher bots like robots. We're a
Right,
human
right,
being. Treat yourself like a human being. If the
right.
adults aren't well, the students are not well. And right now, our teachers are not well. So I don't know why legislators, district administrators think that the students are going to be well and so-called be all proficient and distinguished because the
Yeah.
adults are well.
The other thing I'd say, Dr. Lamb, when I think about it from like the superintendents, the district leaders, the people who are, because when we're talking about who are they, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But the they is maybe the leaders of the teachers and things like that, or people putting things in place. What I'm noticing, they're also not well. And so they're or well equipped. One piece of feedback that we got on our session today with our participants was that like I'm a leader, I'm a principal, I'm a a couple. Actually, it was a couple. It wasn't just one. It was a couple. I'm a leader, I'm a principal. Um, what do I do? And it's like I've
Mm-hmm.
tried a lot of things. Some of us are Black leaders who are principals and who get things where like things carried down on them worse. Then I think about the legislator. You just mentioned the legislator
Mm-hmm.
who sit there and tell us from day to day. Well, tell us what needs to happen. I don't really know. So we have people who are making decisions about budget, money,
Mm-hmm.
um, how we, are how we're navigating the different schools with all the different privileges and the different resources or lack thereof, right? And I know somebody, so they just always get in, and it may not always black and brown that get the first opportunity. Like they know these things, but it's like, well, just tell me what to do. So it's like it feels like a lot of our system, not a lot of people know what to do at all, or they
That's
know what to do, but they are nervous about rocking the boat.
say that again.
They know what to do. And I'll say this is for everyone, for who your target audience is. You are targeting Black educators who, well, you said Black educators, period.
Yes,
Right?
yes. Say that again.
I'm targeting these leaders and all educators who are making decisions and crafting and creating things and making policies, because I need you all to listen to the Black educators, but I also need you to listen to what history has shown. And if we're
Right.
doing the same thing, so you know what to do, you know what we shouldn't do, but people are like stuck. And so what
Yeah.
we want to provide for you all, and sometimes when we come on here live together, we're accountable to one another to really help these schools. We're really going to make sure it happens. But we want to make sure that you understand that taking the action steps is not as hard as we think. I think once we step in, number one, and as Dr. Lamb said, and acknowledge this is a lot on both ends. I don't want to be stabbed in the back. Just call it out, right? We do have all these resources. This isn't working. People's mindsets are not going to change. As long as you believe that, that will continue to happen.
Yes.
As long as
Yeah.
you do not speak up, the same things will
Mhm.
continue to happen. So we have toolkits for you all through culturally responsive, CRSE, culturally responsive and sustaining education, that will help you to go to the next level as an organization and as an individual. And secondly, I'm really high on literacy and education, and how we normalize reading, right? Because we're talking about reading, and we talk about reading scores. That's something across the nation that is just tough. And so I know everybody's trying to tackle that. Why are kids still not reading? COVID, it's because of COVID. It's not just because of COVID. COVID
It's
has
not.
revealed things to us.
Yes. If it wasn't
COVID,
for
yeah,
COVID, we wouldn't be talking about it.
so boldly. Like people have been talking about it, and
Right.
there's a lot of work out there. We
But
have a
not
lot of
bold
people, but
because of
not boldly.
and also to add on with this with the science of reading,
Right.
not only to be literate when you go to that reading class, we're talking about literacy across subjects. So
We're talking literacy across the world, like across living a life
right,
that is sustainable and thriving for that our kids can thrive. You have to be literate. You have to be able to read, but you have to be literate through life.
right. Because there's this misconception and kids have been implicitly taught that they only read when they go to reading class, when they go to English class.
Exactly. And
They've been
when we think about it, we're talking a lot today about Black educators being well. We're talking a lot about setting conditions and spaces. And so we'll close around this. Like when we pull in science of reading, because this is the big new thing, this big new thing of science of reading is literally just good practice with reading, teaching reading, right? And so, yes, that is the reading teachers. Yes, there are competencies around that for early literacy. That's my background. Early literacy, reading specialist. And so you're thinking like, oh, that's for the reading teachers, the reading specialists, the interventionists. But what's happening is as we continuously isolate, just like we isolate Black brilliance, just like we isolate, we can't just, why is it not intertwined? I think the point is for us to say, teachers need to be well equipped. And as they are learning about the science of reading, everyone needs to be in on that. Number one. Number two, it needs to be centered around culturally responsive teaching and learning. There is an art to teaching. There is an art to teaching reading. There's an art to maintaining long-lasting readers that are lifelong readers from every subject, every community, at home and in the classroom. So these things we centralize, and I really wanted to say more of this on our talk today, but we didn't have as much time to do that. but this is a part two to that, right? And so some people were like, I want to know more about the connection between CRC and science of
Yeah.
reading. So Dr. Lamb and I are teaming up to do a few lives for you all, a few free lives, short lives to just give more information around that. And Dr. Lamb, she has a webinar coming up that's solely specifically talking about CRSC and how you can use that as a Black educator, I have something solely
Mhm.
just for science of reading and how we incorporate, so it's not solely, how we incorporate culturally responsive teaching and how that looks, right? And together, we're going to come for a few lives to just kind of talk about how it's necessary for all schools everywhere around the world to understand how we are being culturally responsive in everything that we do, and starting with our teachers being equipped and well, then making sure that we look at the data to see what is lacking with our children, and then making sure that cultural responsiveness is the pedagogy of what we do. And lastly, we are to get together. We're going to talk about how we get together as a community to ensure we are helping each other go to the next level in power, positive power, not the power of privilege in a negative way from the history, but the power to be the best that we can be as educators and walk in our uniqueness, put it all together and implement, do trial and error as much as you can to make sure our children are reading, to make sure all of our children are reading, all of our children see Black and brown teachers, all of our schools have the tools. We have toolkits for you. We have the
Mhm.
tools to make all of what we just said today happen. So connect with us. We look on our social medias. We are on LinkedIn. Everybody Educate. I am the CEO of Everybody Educate, where we believe everybody is educating somebody somewhere. And in order to do it, we need to make sure we are equipped with excellence and equitable practices so no one falls through any cracks and we can thrive. Dr. Lamb, you are the
I am the CEO and lead consultant of Education Empowerment. You can follow me on LinkedIn, also on Facebook. So, our consulting business, we stand up for, we advocate, and we support Black educators to walk in their power, to not be silenced while acknowledging themselves in order to be well and in order to teach our children.
All right, y'all. You heard it from us. We are on a mission to support all around the world. We speak, we train, we consult, and we also go into the classroom and make sure that we are coaching right alongside you if that is what you need and your schools need. If you need a toolkit, we have resources. So book us, connect with us, build relationship with us. We would love to talk to you more about these areas. And we're available as long as you are open-minded to go to the next level of brilliance. Bye.